Hey, Disney listeners, it's time to continue our journey with Azan and Nicole. Let's watch the show. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's get to it.
I'm dreading getting home and talking to my family about what really happened, but I know when I get home that my mom's gonna want to talk about it, so we're gonna have to talk about it.
So, my hypothesis, and it has very little data to back it up, is that Nicole has a dependent personality type in that she has schemas that were developed early in life due to the way she was parented for whatever reason. There's a lot of different reasons that can lead to this, that can lead children to grow up into adults who feel like they are dependent on other people, like they can't do things on their own, low self-esteem, oftentimes repressed anger, repressed resentment against other people, and then a style of kind of sucking people in to take care of them because they'll come across as incompetent. And then the dynamic would be facilitated, developed in a system in which you had a parent who was either controlling or made the child to feel incompetent in their decisions, made the child feel like they can't really do things on their own. Every parent goes through this. When you watch your kid make mistakes, it's very anxiety provoking, and there's a lot of different ways to deal with it. It's very nuanced in the way that is sort of the best way. All parents make mistakes. All parents don't make mistakes. So there are moments of making mistakes. There are moments of not making mistakes. But anyway, the hope is that as you navigate that anxiety, because as the kid makes mistakes at the age of 10, then you want to step in more often. If they're 16, you don't want to step in as often. When they're 22, you might want to step in a little bit, but maybe not all the time. And how do you navigate that balance between saving your child while also allowing them to make their own mistakes and allowing them to learn and say, you know what, I made a mistake on my own. What do I learn about it? And I got this message from my parents that they trusted me enough to make my own mistakes. That makes me feel good about myself. That's an important developmental process that needs to be facilitated. So let's watch this interaction to see if we can get any more data along those lines. Maybe the hypothesis will be wrong. But we did hear just something from her just now that points in that direction of my hypothesis, because she's saying, I don't want to talk about what happened in Morocco with my mom, but my mom wants to talk about it, so I guess we're going to talk about it. So that, again, is that dynamic of control and dependency, and meaning that Nicole probably has dealt with a lot of her mother imposing on her or controlling parts of her life that Nicole doesn't want control of her life. On the flip side, the mother might feel like she doesn't want to step in on her daughter's life, but her daughter frequently exhibits behavior that compels a loving parent to do something about that. So there's always two sides of the coin. Both sides are understandable, but often they will both contribute to a system that perpetuates the dependent over functioner, under functioner dynamic. Let's see if we can find out what happens.
Tastes okay? All right, Nicole.
I was telling Ashley this is a lot of food compared to over there.
Really? They don't have as much food?
Not big portions.
So I know things were rough. You're trying to shield me from some of it. Tell me what really happened.
All right, so I'm going to analyze every little bit here because I'm guessing we're not going to get much data, which is always a problem for me. I always want more of this kind of data because this illuminates what it was like for Nicole growing up. So right there, the mom detects that Nicole is being quiet and not being very forthcoming. And she probably knows that that means that Nicole doesn't want to say something because she is worried about what the mom's going to say. Now, so for us watching, we'd be like, hey, Mom, lay off. But Mom loves her daughter. She cares about her daughter. She cares about Nicole. And Nicole isn't really helping. A different approach that would have not sucked the mom into this dynamic of controlling her would have been for Nicole to sit down and say, Mom, I just want to tell you that I had a very interesting experience in Morocco. We had our ups, we had our downs, but I have it taken care of, and I really don't want any feedback. I just want to have a good evening with you. And if you have questions, fine, but to tell you the truth, sometimes you get a little pushy, and I just don't want to deal with that right now. So, can we just do this differently? So that would be someone sitting down, being differentiated, being having the self-esteem, not being dependent, having the sense of competence in the self to say, to be assertive. I've talked about in other episodes, there are 3 stages to assertiveness. There's succumbing to other people and resenting it. Number 2, stage 2 is to say no and be rebellious and sort of cut people out, which is what she's kind of doing right now. She's just like stonewalling the mom. But that gives off the impression that you don't really have any things under control, because when you're just rebelling and being quiet, it exhibits a certain childishness that causes people to not really trust in your ability to think through things. The 3rd stage of assertiveness is the ability to stand in your own 2 feet, say no at times, but also think about other people's feelings. Nicole, it's probably not strange for her to think about that my mom is probably really worried about me. My mom loves me, and she's concerned about me, and she's wondering if I'm making the wrong choice. So how am I going to deal with that? I don't want to talk about it with my mom, or at least I don't want pressure from my mom. But I do love my mom, and there are some things I want to tell her about. So I'm going to think about my feelings, which is I don't want any pressure. But I'm also going to think about my feelings in that I want some support, and I want to share what happened in Morocco. And I know that my mom is very worried, so I'm going to care about that. So that's assertiveness. That's thinking about mom. That's thinking about the self. That's saying no to some things. That's saying yes to some things. It's not just like I'm going to succumb to whatever my mom does and I'm going to resent it, or I'm going to stonewall her and keep her out. And what that does is it tends to suck people in. When someone is being very quiet like that, you give off a childish vibe, an incompetent vibe, and that compels other people, or it's very compelling to people, particularly parents, to step in and be like, okay, what's going on here? Let me know what's happening. Instead, Nicole could have come at it in a different way, but because of her issues, I'm guessing it's hard for her to manage that. And her attempt to manage her mom is to be very quiet, which is, going to produce the opposite effect from the mom.
We fight and stuff.
How many times did you argue?
Well, little fights.
Little fights? Well, little fights turn into big fights, and then big fights turn into ugly big fights.
So I think it's older sister. I'm not quite sure, but she's certainly acting like the older sister. So maybe this was a dynamic in the family where mom and sister would, because the other sister seems more competent in some ways, less of a childish persona. And so maybe this illuminates an ongoing scenario in this family where mom and sister were the competent ones, the overfunctioners, but issues of their own that they mask through being concerned about other people. And that for Nicole, she was the one who was the incompetent one. So when I phrase it that way, it's like, well, why would a family system operate like that? Well, when you have stress on a family system, and this is total speculation, I'm just going to tell a story about these 3 people and the father in this family that could be completely wrong. But I could see us out of the thousands of scenarios this could have happened, where the family, they had mom and dad, you had 2 daughters, older daughter and Nicole, and they went through some kind of stressful time, the divorce or maybe ongoing conflict between the parents. Who knows what's happening? But there was stress on the system, which resulted in people not being able to get their needs met. Each individual, mom, dad, daughter, no one is really getting their needs met. And so when you see that happening, when there's stress on a system, people tend to individualize or tend to specialize in terms of their roles. Why would they do that? Well, they do that because in order to get love, they feel like they have to be very specific in their behavior. So, for example, Nicole could have received a lot of love by being the cute young one, by being the cute class or the family clown or the sweet one, the one who allows people to take care of her, the one who always has a positive disposition, the one who is naive, the one who can be ridiculed and maybe they're, self-deprecating. I could see that happening in this family. The older sister, she got self-esteem by specializing in being very competent and being older than what she was. She might have been at the age of 12 and she was already acting like she was 22. But inside, she felt like a 12-year-old. The mom had her role. Everyone had their roles. And every family has roles. But when you have stress in the system, people will specialize. And what happens is they become very rigid in their role. There's nothing wrong with having a sister who takes care of her younger sister. But there is something wrong when the older sister has to take care of her younger sister. And the younger sister has to create problems so that other people can take care of her. That's when you start seeing dysfunctions happen, particularly as they age, because people retain those roles growing up. So maybe we're seeing that in this situation. I don't know. Let's watch more.
Sometimes when we fight, if he wanted to get me shoved, sometimes he would say, shut the up. Or he would say, I don't care about you.
Okay.
So I don't know what Nicole's motivation here is, but she did say, or she did indicate that she feels like she has to talk with her mom and her sister about what happened in Morocco, and she's not excited about it because I'm guessing she's worried about judgment. So let's look at her behavior. She sits down, she's very quiet, which causes people to be like, why isn't she saying anything? And I'm worried and I want to get some reassurance, and having her be quiet, and I've seen this before, she's usually quiet because something's wrong. I'm just speculating. And then when she gets pushed, she finally says something, and that's what she says. She says that, well, sometimes he told me to shut the F up, and sometimes he told me that he didn't care about my feelings. Anyway, moving on. So she just drops this bomb. Now, for Nicole, she would probably say, if I pulled her aside, I would say, like, what do you want to get out of this conversation? I'm guessing, speculation, that Nicole would say, well, I want support. I want validation from my family, but I also don't want to hear their crap because they're always making fun of me or controlling me or telling me that I'm making a bad choice. And they've already told me that they think I'm making a bad choice by being engaged to Azan. So I want validation, but I also don't want to hear their controlling bad stuff. And then I would say, okay, well then why did you just drop that bomb? What were you hoping? And she's like, well, I think I was hoping that they would validate me. But that's the conscious mind. The unconscious mind, because that's a big part of our motivation as well. So consciously, she might be thinking, I want support. So I'm gonna drop this bomb, and I'm gonna say that Azan treated me very badly in Morocco. But an unconscious thing that she might be actually giving into is, I want to create a situation where they have to control me, because as a dependent person, I get a lot of comfort by recreating this dynamic where someone is taking care of me. How do I provoke other people to take care of me? Well, I subconsciously am motivated to say things that provoke other people, that give off the vibe like I've made a terrible mistake and I don't really know what I'm doing. This is a lot of speculation, but that's one idea that comes to mind as I watch this. Let's see if we get some more data. But I want to rewind that and watch that over again.
Sometimes when we fight, if he wanted to get me shoved, sometimes he would say, shut the up. Or he would say, I don't care about you.
Okay. Is that it?
He thinks that I should lose some weight, and there would be better attraction between us.
And how'd you feel about that?
I didn't know he cared about it like that.
Okay, so the mom and the sister are, being differentiated in this moment. They're not jumping on her right away. They're saying, okay, well, how'd you feel about that? It gives off this vibe of, well, you're a grown woman. I'm not going to tell you how you're supposed to feel about that. This is your life. And how do you feel about that? Instead of immediately jumping on top of that, see, this is why I told you you shouldn't go, and different culture, and they're not pouncing. So things are going well so far. But I have to say that Nicole is definitely giving off a vibe that would cause people who have a tendency to control and take over. She's definitely giving off a vibe. I don't know if that's just me or if it's true for many people, but the way she is behaving, if someone had a tendency to want to come in and save someone, she's definitely giving off a lot of vibe like, come save me. I don't know how to save myself.
So he's not necessarily turned on by your size, is that what you're saying?
He's not fully attracted to me.
But you're ready to just jump into a full-out marriage with someone who really isn't attracted to you.
So there's a lot to say. One is that I didn't know that we weren't shown those scenes. Maybe he said those things when the cameras weren't around. She's saying that he said he wants her to lose weight because he's not fully attracted to her. I'm guessing that's extremely hurtful for Nicole. And yeah, it's just awful. The other part to this is that the mom, you heard that vibe that she gave off. The mom is saying something. So one of the things that I often will do to analyze these dynamics, of which there are many, by the way, between parent and child, or adult child and parent, or even between spouses, is I will ask the mothers, if these people were in therapy right now, I would ask the mom, okay, so I just want you to analyze what you just said. Repeat what you just said. The mom said something like, so you want to get married to someone who isn't attracted to you. You're ready to get married to someone that you're not attracted to. So mom, I want you to analyze that statement. Do you really believe that your daughter is so stupid that she doesn't know that already? Because to say something to someone else that is so obvious, it gives the impression that you believe that person is so dumb that they wouldn't come up with this themselves. Now, if the child was 5 years old, then developmentally they haven't learned things. But Nicole's 22 years old. She knows this. She's not stupid. She has thought those thoughts. She's not expressing that, but she has that thought of like, yeah, I'm scared that I'm committing to marry someone who's not fully attracted to me. And so the reason why I do this is because for the overfunctioners, they often will say things that are really quite obvious because, one, they have a narrative that the person they're talking to is actually so incompetent that they don't know obvious things. So what that does is it perpetuates that dynamic by giving a message to the underfunctioner that I don't think you're smart enough to come up with this, so I'm going to tell you it. So there's that. The other thing is it kind of comes off as aggressive. It's just like, yeah, mom, thanks. That's how supportive of you. So it tends to make people feel lesser. It pushes them down. It makes them more anxious. It makes them feel even more incompetent. Because when you're treated like an incompetent person, you tend to believe you're an incompetent person, like you're not good enough, like you need other people to tell you obvious things. And so if you want someone under you to be competent, don't yell at them to be competent because that just pushes them down. What you want to do is build them up. You want to say things like, well, like what she was saying in the beginning is like, well, how does that make you feel? Well, what do you want to do with it? Well, you're smart enough to figure this out. How would you like us to help you with that? That's more of an equal thing. It's just like, if a friend comes to you with something where they're struggling, you don't say like, well, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. You're like, well, I'm your friend. How would you like me to help you? And with 22-year-old children, that's at least you want to start off with that for a good while.
I didn't know he cared about it like that.
So he's not necessarily turned on by your size, is that what you're saying?
He's not fully attracted to me.
But you're ready to just jump into a full-out marriage with someone who really isn't attracted to you.
Mm-hmm.
What you see right now could be the way you're going to spend the rest of your life, and you're okay with that.
No, I'm not okay with that.
What if he doesn't change?
at this moment in time, we want to fix things. In the last few days, we said we change.
So I don't know if I'm seeing this right, but to me, this looks like a very overfunctioner, underfunctioner, where mom is saying things that are really quite obvious to daughter, and in her tone, not being supportive and even kind of berating her. Look at you again. What are you doing? What's wrong with you? That's the vibe. I don't know if other people are picking that up, but that's the vibe that I'm getting. And the vibe I'm getting from Nicole, as I've said in previous episodes, it's always interesting to take a step back and don't think about someone's age, and think about the behavior and think about what sort of age developmental stage would be indicative of that behavior. So let's say, don't think about these two people. Just think about if I were to tell you a story where a mother was saying rather obvious things to their child, and the child was moping around and, sighing and not really saying that much, and not a lot of eye contact. What age would we put the child in? Well, I would put that child at the age of about 13 years old, because that's a very frequent conversation, developmentally speaking, where the 13-year-old is made some mistake, like they didn't do their homework, or they skipped school, or they took the car out without permission, and the parent is like, what did you do? How come you did that? And don't you understand, that kind of talk? And that's developmentally normal. Now, we can debate the wisdom of that kind of parenting style, but it's a frequent kind of vibe that many parents and 13-year-olds will have. So in this situation, we get a vibe from both people, not from mom treating her like she's 13, but daughter acting like she is 13. Because remember, the other way that Nicole could have approached this is like, Mom, I just want your support right now, and I'm going to tell you some things that are going to maybe concern you, they're going to freak you out, but I just want you to know that I have it under control. I'm thinking about things. I'm debating in my mind whether or not I want to go through with the marriage, because there's some red flags, but I also think that this could work out. And so, I'm still working on things. And I'd love your input, but I don't want it to be berated, and I don't want you to tell me things that are obvious, because it makes me feel like I'm stupid. So that's another way that there's 100 other ways that someone in Nicole's position could sit down and engage in this conversation. But that's not what Nicole did. What Nicole did was to exhibit kind of a 13-year-old persona, which sucks mom in to be kind of a parent of a 13-year-old persona. And at the same time, mom is treating her like a 13-year-old, because they have this repetitive pattern. So Nicole probably expected that. And so that compels Nicole to act like a 13-year-old. That's systems. That's the systemic circular causality, is that as one does one, it makes the other one do this. And as one does this, it makes the other one do this. The more Nicole acts like a 13-year-old, the more mom treats her like a 13-year-old. The more mom treats her like a 13-year-old, the more she acts like a 13-year-old. And it just goes round and round and round. And until you actually analyze that and break the cycle, it's just going to continue.
If my husband would have said any of that just once, we wouldn't have gotten married. No one should have to physically tell you to shut the F up, because you should be able to talk to each other.
So you see that frustration. I'm just guessing Nicole she has a lot of things going through her mind right now. Probably most present is, thank you, older sister and mom, for making me feel like I'm a complete idiot for considering being in this relationship. Thank you for telling me that it's obvious that I shouldn't be in this relationship, because it's not obvious to me. Because, I don't want him to say those things. I'm not stupid. I don't like it to be told to shut the F up. But I think that we might be able to change. We might be able to work on it. I don't know. But when you're shoved into a 13-year-old person or even younger, and you also have those issues with your own competence and your own self-esteem, then you get all mixed up in your head and you don't know what to do, and then you get frustrated and you sigh and you put your hands in your face.
I think he's using her, but I would like to see her actually manning up and dropping the relationship if she feels like it's not going to be good for her.
I got a bad feeling about this. I don't think you've really thought about this, Nicole.
Classic statement right there. I don't think you've really thought about this, Nicole. Wow. I mean, that narrative is just so strong in the mother's mind of just like, you haven't even thought about this. You're just a little incompetent, stupid little child, and you're trying to act like you're an adult, and you're not. And that plays into Nicole's, I'm guessing, schemas that she probably has, which is, I'm not smart enough, I'm not good enough to make my own choices, I'm not competent to make my own choices. And so then she gets into her cycle of defenses and her beating herself up on the inside. So this isn't going to help Nicole make better choices by just berating her and making her feel small.
I think I'm jet lagged and I'm ready to go to sleep.
I'm about as frustrated as I usually am with her. All I can do is hope to guide her in the direction that she needs to go.
So again, just classic overfunctioning is that I'm frustrated with her as usual. So you hear this habitual pattern that she is referring to. And then she says, I just hope that I can guide her in the direction that she needs to go. So that's a very important statement. That says that she believes that she knows what's best for her adult child and that she is going to guide her in that direction, not validate her, not hear her, not support her, not help her make her own choices. I'm going to guide her in the direction that I know she needs to go because she can't do it herself. It's a very powerful statement. Let's listen back to that.
Like to see her actually manning up and dropping the relationship if she feels like it's not going to be good for her.
I got a bad feeling about this. I don't think you've really thought about this, Nicole.
I think I'm jet lagged and I'm ready to go to sleep.
I'm about as frustrated as I usually am with her. All I can do is hope to guide her in the direction that she needs to go sooner rather than later.
I really feel like Azan can change. I do. And I want to give him that chance before my family judges him about what happened.
So as always, when they do the interviews away from other people, the people on the show tend to exhibit more differentiation. She didn't give off this vibe at all while she was talking to her mom in person. That would have been a great thing to say to her mom. Mom, I know that he has some bad qualities, but he has some really good qualities. And I want to see if we can actually work this out. So I'm willing to give it a try. But I'm still worried about some of the things that I've seen. That would have inspired the mom to, or at least given her a chance to say, oh, okay, you got this. I don't have to control you anymore. So that's how that system works, is they're both participating in it. It's easy to look at a situation like this and blame the mom. She's being controlling, she's putting her down, which is true. But it denies the way in which two people or a whole system work to perpetuate the behavior. And I said before in previous episodes, everyone kind of gets something out of this. The Nicoles of the world, there's pros and cons to being the 13-year-old of a family or the 7-year-old of a family, even though you're 22. The pros are, or the cons are pretty obvious in that you're always treated like you're stupid or immature or incompetent, which is bad. The pro is that you always have someone that will take care of you when you need it, that because they're so worried about you because you frequently make mistakes, that any time you have a problem, they're just around the corner to save you. You know, you can throw your hands up whenever you want to. You just be like, I can't deal with life right now, and someone will come in and save you from that. That's a wonderful feeling. I wish I had someone like that in my life. Sometimes I just want to throw up my hands and just be like, please, but that comes with a cost later in life usually. So everyone's participating in that. But while she's away from her family, she's able to be differentiated. She's able to say, yeah, I see both sides. I get it. I'm an adult. I get it. And Murray Bowen, who developed the theory of differentiation, he talked about how extremely differentiated people or extremely healthy people were able to retain their differentiated self, their true self, in the face of their family for a maximum of 30 minutes. So he said that so we have two different selves. We have the basic self, the true self, and then we have the pseudo self, which is the self that we do when we're trying to please other people, the self that's very anxious about disappointing other people and rejection from other people. And right now she's exhibiting her basic self. She's standing on her own 2 feet. She sees black and white, and she doesn't know what to do, which is normal. And she seems put together in this moment. In the face of her mom, she was exhibiting more of her pseudo self, where she isn't saying these kinds of things, so she doesn't want to step out of line. She's trying to evade. She's trying to say just enough to get out. She's acting anxiously. So what Bowen said was that even extremely healthy people who get a lot of therapy and work on a lot of differentiation techniques, when they go home and interact with their parents and their siblings, they can retain that differentiated self for a maximum of 30 minutes. I don't know if that's apocryphal, but I remember hearing that, and I think I remember reading that from him. Meaning that the emotional field of a family, particularly our family of origin, is so strong and will suck us back into our pseudo-self and will suck us away from our true self, that it's really impossible to expect anyone to be able to withstand the pressure of that emotional field, because we're human beings and we're not perfect. So for Nicole, she didn't last a half an hour. She didn't last a couple of minutes, really. So that's to be expected for the average person.
And I don't think we're going to accomplish a whole lot more tonight.
Me neither.
All right. Well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me out there. Please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.